probably admired his hat, undoubtedly, because he wears different hats. Carter's dad and I have been friends for over 30 years, and I've known a few things about Carter. I won't mention all of them here in front of him. But his dad told me enough that I know that Carter has a story about why he's Cardinal Cowboy, and I think you're going to find it an interesting story. So without further ado, I'll introduce Carter Rethwisch, Cardinal Cowboy.
Good afternoon. I appreciate you guys having me down here. Many times I've seen you down at the Cardinal games there. We get to hang out and talk a little bit about there. I've probably seen a lot of you guys there at the games too, so I appreciate that. But yeah, my story is kind of unique, and it goes back to just a life of baseball. So this speech I finished writing not long ago, a few hours back. I decided I had to summarize, but I call this "How Baseball Saved My Life." And the truth is, if you know my story, you find out that baseball was a pretty large impact on my development and who I became and what helped me to survive. But my story goes back, the first trace is a picture of me as a child. I'm in my PJs with the classic Cardinal hard helmet that you saw so many times without the ears on, right? But they sell us at the game, the classic Ozzie Smith style helmet. But at a young age, I started taking ground balls in the backyard with my dad, and I really think that's kind of what helped me to develop. He had me skip t-ball, but then we went right into the Little League, where the real slow pitch, and became one of the better-known players at that level. 6, 7-year-old kid, but was diving all over the place, doing all kinds of fun stuff. Kind of matured and developed, and ended up playing pretty competitive ball for a couple different teams during the summers, and was known to be a decent ball player as a kid. Went to high school, played up as a freshman at Lutheran South, continued to develop, ended up winning, being selected as one of the Metro Players honorable mentions as a junior, which is normally reserved a lot of times for seniors, but made it there. Then my senior year, I was playing in the SABR League. You guys might be familiar with St. Louis Amateur Baseball Association, real competitive baseball. Ended up winning the team MVP for Crestwood Lindbergh, the County Mac League SABR, and was up against a number of guys to win. Then if you win the team, you can win the league, and the guy who ended up winning the league award is a guy by the name of Brian Rupp, which some of you may know. He's now he made it up to AAA with the Cardinals. He out-hit me by a few points. I had a couple more stolen bases than he did, but now he's the AA manager of the Washington Nationals. So at that point, was kind of on my way. Some of you may know a couple years later, a guy by the name of Freeze and a guy by the name of Howard also won the same award, and they won the whole league award as well. Decided to take my talent to Central Methodist University, where my dad had been a college admissions counselor for, at that time, 25, 30 years. Now it's been close to 50 years. He's been doing this forever. And my parents had met there and had a real good little baseball program. They also asked me to play soccer, where I played high school soccer, went to the state championship, scored a sudden death overtime goal in high school to do that. But I said, all right, I'll play soccer. I knew the coach for a long time. He'd been around recruiting with my dad. And we went into a game against Mobap, went into sudden death overtime, and there was another opportunity where one of the guys could have scored a goal, but he didn't, so we went into overtime, and that kind of set the timing. So my parents had come down to see me. It was the homecoming for Central Methodist, and I had a girlfriend, though, that was back in Peoria going to Bradley, and she was going to meet me in St. Louis. So I said, parents, thanks for coming to see me. I'm turning around going back to St. Louis. Jumped in the car here with my buddies. So I got in the car with my buddy Jimmy Barnes, Jimmy Weatherly, and Sean Soule, myself being in the back left seat as a passenger in this car. We made it out to Highway 109 in Eureka when there was another truck spinning out of control at us coming down Highway 109, which is kind of a windy road back there, close to Eureka High School, where they were going to go watch the Eureka High School soccer game. Turns out the guy that was driving the car was drunk while his car was spinning at us and hit us head on, at which point a mass collision and a very traumatic situation at the scene there. Jimmy Barnes was our driver. He was going to be blind if he was to survive. They yanked him out and put him in the ambulance, sent him to go on the first trip to the ambulance. They actually had the drunk driver who hit us, who later was sentenced to 5 years in prison for manslaughter. But Jimmy Barnes later died at the hospital. But the drunk driver was actually in the ambulance, ready to go to the hospital, and I was coherent talking to him at the scene. And they said, everything's fine, Carter, go on the next trip. And then I began to have seizures, and started to just, shake violently, and they said, pull the drunk guy out, he's not so bad, put Carter in. And they said if I hadn't made that first trip, I would not have survived. But in having seizures, a lot of times they show up. I've actually studied this drug. It's called Dilantin. Dilantin will stop seizures, but it can induce a coma. And so at that point, I made it to the hospital. The seizures had stopped, but I did go into a coma. At that point, they told my parents. My parents finally got on the phone with them, and they said, my dad's talking to him as he's driving back, saying, yeah, our son is in front of us. What's this call about? And Dad, being kind of a well-informed guy, says, I know he knew what he couldn't ask, but he knew what he could get them to answer. And so he said, can I speak to my son? And when they said no, he knew it was pretty bad. So at that point, he continued to the hospital. They told him, my mom and my dad at that point, that I had less than 50-50 odds to survive. So I was in a coma with a ventilator, with my arms restrained, and about the fifth day in the hospital, in the trauma unit at St. John's Mercy, while in a coma, there became an emergent situation where I was reacting in the room. I'd gotten my arms unrestrained. The nurses and doctors all ran into the room to see what was going on, and I got my arms out of the restraints and pulled the ventilator out of my own throat. So they were just startled to see what was going on, hoping it wasn't tragic, but found out that at that point, obviously, I had come out of the coma and at that point would survive. But at that point, the prognosis had improved from near death to, okay, well now, you're probably just going to have to take care of Carter for the rest of his life. And so that's what they told my parents. But my dad said, you don't know Carter, you don't know our son. So I attribute the fact that I was so competitive and so determined because of the nature I've been brought up with baseball. As a kid, jumped out of the leagues that we were in the small town I grew up in Fenton, and went up to Baldwin and played national blue level baseball, where I had to have a tryout as like a 6th grade kid, and just really began to develop that competitiveness that helped me, I believe, is the reason I survived. You know, I was given the prognosis to die and then to not be able to take care of myself, and I just kept proving the doctors wrong. They said I needed to drop out of school for at least a semester. I said, I'm not dropping out, I'm going back away to school down at Central Methodist. I continued at school, I got grades. At that point, then I decided to transfer to SLU, where I graduated from SLU on time, which they said I shouldn't have been able to do. Didn't make great grades, but I did finish. But then I continued to, then with my baseball career being over, I, in college, had planned to kick for the football team, because I've been a soccer player and was playing soccer there, wanted to start kicking field goals. So started to kick in what I found as a minor league team. There's minor league football all around the country, actually. And my second year, kicked a 51-yard field goal while there was a scout that happened to be the referee at the game. He said, hey, would you like a tryout with the St. Louis Rams? And I said, well, yeah, here's my email. Here's my yeah. So they proceeded, Bobby April's assistant called me at the time, remember Bobby April, special teams coach, and he said, hey, we've got a guy by the name of Jeff Wilkins. I said, yeah, I've heard of him. But we like to promote talent from within if we can. So I continued to hit a few more field goals like that. Again, all after what they predicted I would not be able to survive, much less ever kick at any kind of level, and proceeded down that path. While finishing college and then going on to finish grad school, I got hired by Anheuser-Busch too, and I ended up running their email systems for about 10 years up until we all know they got bought out, and they pretty much anybody that made. With a grad school degree, they said you're too educated and too highly paid, so you're out of here. But proceeded then to continue with the football stuff. So many of you might probably know there's a lot of indoor teams that have come through St. Louis, and I was asked to try out and be part of a number of different teams. I found out recently that one time they suggested I be the kicker, and one guy said no because he had a disagreement with me. But ended up being the kicker last year. Another goal. It's one of these things again where I just kept it determined. It was a goal of mine to become a professional athlete, and the Missouri Monsters came to town, and the coach was somebody I knew. He said, "Hey, how's your leg? Come on out." And was actually selected last year to be the kicker for the Missouri Monsters. So finally reached another one of my goals that I'd set for myself after all of what I went through, and became a professional kicker for the Missouri Monsters. And never forget the first extra point was the 20, but the goalposts are only 10 feet indoors, so you miss a little bit to the left. I start watching the big guys now in the NFL. A lot of those guys will be missing these extra points that are with goalposts. But that was another opportunity for me to again say, hey, I did it. I proved them wrong. The doctors had said I was never going to be able to do all this kind of stuff, and now that's the story I try to share with the groups, and that's why I decided, to take the opportunity here and speak to you guys a little bit about what I'm about and what I believe, and how my goal is to help change lives because I was very fortunate. I had some great people that really helped take care of me and help me survive something that obviously they predicted that I would not. And I've been very fortunate now to work with a number of organizations too that really help. I felt like I have to give back. So you're familiar with Rescue Responders, Cardinal Hospital, Make-A-Wish, Smiles for Seth, the Rankin Jordan Hospital, Ronald McDonald House, Boys and Girls Club, and a list of others, and about 50 different organizations. I've been fortunate. I've got another event tonight. We're going to be at the Adoption Exchanges over here at the Red Bird Room at Busch Stadium for their fundraiser. And that's where I really feel like I get to contribute and help out and be part of these kinds of different organizations. So my thesis, my synopsis is, you see, it's baseball that developed in me the tenacity, the desire, the passion, the work ethic, the commitment, the ability to bounce back, to beat the odds, and to prove the naysayers wrong. After all of these experts were telling me what I wasn't going to be able to do. Baseball proved in and to me that it's not the size, it's not the speed, strength, or the raw talent that defines who you are, but it's the heart, the willingness to never stop, to never give up, never cave, and never quit until you are the best, until you're at the top of your game and reach and you've won it all. Not until you have done that can you say that you are a true-blooded, sweat and tears participant in the greatest sport that I think has ever existed on the face of the planet. It has helped develop millions of lives over the last now 175 years. Because you see, it's not the error in life, it's not the error in the game that kills you. It's how you respond to that error, right? Because many times teams collapse after something goes wrong. But you've got to be able to bounce back and overcome. And my dad, that's one of his famous quotes that he's taught me. And another one that's been so true to me, that is, if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're right. And so I've been very fortunate to be part of this organization on this planet of all the baseball players out there. And not until now, and after all of what I've been through and what has developed here in this planet in baseball, have I been fortunate to call myself a baseball player. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Carter?
So, did you ever steal home?
We had
one of those up there.
That's right. This guy down to my right here, Mr. Brummer, that is a historic event. I just Googled to see it, and your clip is all over MLB. But yeah, during a double steal, I did. I wasn't as quick-witted or as smooth as Mr. Brummer here, who just took off and straight made it without any. But on a double steal, one time, another in-stream play, there was a pass ball. We're playing the St. Louis Browns, the men's team, and there's a short fence. Ball went back to the fence. The catcher ran back to get it, and right as he was about to pick it up, I wasn't going. It was a short fence. I was on third base, and our manager goes, "Get down, get down." Well, that caused the catcher to think, well, he's coming. I better turn around and throw the ball. So he went, picked the ball up, threw it to home plate, but nobody was covering because I wasn't going. So the ball rolled across the plate, and then I ran across and scored.
So you've got an interesting, compelling story. When I've seen you at the ballpark, are you trying to tell a story there or send a message? Or?
Yeah, my goal there is to kind of help people enjoy the fact that, baseball is something that kind of unites all of us. It's a great opportunity for us to all support a great cause. And a lot of people don't appreciate, I don't think, a lot of us do, a lot of guys here do, but a lot of people, St. Louisans don't realize the impact that the Cardinals make on this whole community. I mean, the financial impact, the jobs, just the overall revenue that's created, and it's an incredible opportunity. Baseball is something that gives people something to hold on to and something to believe in and help motivate them. And I've made incredible friendships and relationships over, just talking about, the Dave Freese home run or Jim Edmonds' catch or Ozzie Smith's dive. And, those are relationships and friendships that you really get to develop that become part of our lives.
The Cardinals offer any help or support? Or?
Yeah, well, I've talked to them a number of times, and they just kind of let me do what I do. I've got these cards that I had to get approval to hand out, but it talks a little bit about my story, and on it says dream and then chase your dreams. And so I hope to inspire. So anytime I see a kid at the game, I'll hand this to them and sign it for them, and then they come lined up to get these from me at the game. But I hope to inspire them too, because, you know, there's a lot of things out there in life that can get you down, and hopefully you can find a way to make it through the exciting things in life and proceed to reach your goals. That's what I tell kids.
Anybody got any other questions for Carter? I've got a question for Carter. What's your mother going to say when you didn't tell the crowd that your mother was John Goodman's drama instructor at halftime?
So
This is big trouble, man. I know his mom.
yeah, she doesn't. My mom's kind of quietly kept, but my mom had been she does the drama still at Afton High School. So a lot of people know John Goodman is from L.A., Lower Afton, right?
Lower Afton.
And she recognized him as a talent, and the music director said, John can't sing. He can't have the lead. She said, I'm the director, he gets the lead. And the rest is history. John recently came back to St. Louis. They named the auditorium, if you've ever been to the Afton Auditorium, it's incredible. It's got a vaulted ceiling, 6-foot stage, 60 foot across. And John Goodman comes walking on the stage and said, and by the way, for this Afton's 150th anniversary, we got one more thing. And now this theater will be called the Judy Rethwisch Auditorium. So I'm very fortunate to have two awesome parents who can raise it for me.
All right, very good. So when you see Carter at the ballpark, give him a high five and hallelujah. Okay? Thanks, Carter.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.